So in this video I'm going to show you how to turn around on a beach. So as you can see, this beach is pretty sloped, it's fairly close to the water and it gets pretty soft down here. Now what's happened is we've been tracking along these ruts here, and have a look at what's happened to the car. It sort of slewed sideways a bit, as you can see. So that right hand wheel should be in this rut, it's over there, and if we look at the back wheel, that's starting to come off, so the whole car is starting to slide sideways, right? Now, this is the point where you've got to give up early and decide what you're going to do, because obviously with the sea over there and soft sand, could be a bit of a dangerous situation. I do know what the tides are because I've already checked the tides, so we're going to be good, but I'm going to show you how I'm going to get this car turned round. But before I do that, I'm going to show you what happens if you persist with a bad idea.
So what we're going to do first is just try and back out. We do that really slowly, really gently, and just see if it works. It is working in this case, so we're just going to keep going backwards until we are well and truly back into those ruts. And it may not always work. If it doesn't, then you have to stop, dig out, use traction ramps, etc. Right, now I'm going to drive forwards again, and I know it's not going to work, but I'm just going to pull away smoothly in second low, get a bit of momentum up and try and keep in those ruts. And what we're going to see is that the car just slides to one side, and I can feel it starting to bog down. And you can see that the back wheel's not following the front wheel exactly, and it's just sliding down a bit. So to explain what's going on, here's an example Aussie beach, and I've divided into the water zone, which is where the ocean obviously is, and then we've got the damp zone where the water's just recently been. That's generally okay to drive on. The dry zone where the water's hasn't been for a while and it's dried out a bit, again okay to drive on. But with both of those, because they're below the high tide mark, then if the tide comes in, you are going to find yourself in trouble. Whereas above the high tide mark, you've got the tideless zone, and that's okay to drive on. There's also the vegetation zone. Do not drive in that because it won't be legal and you don't want to be disturbing the vegetation. Now, in the tideless zone, often you do find persistent ruts, and then you can drive in those, like I put this vehicle here. Some other rules: do not drive in salt water. I know you often see it. Don't do it. It's not good for your vehicle, and if you stop, you run the very real risk of getting very quickly bogged irretrievably. And also the risk of getting bogged in the tideless zone, in fact in the other zones as well, is a function of the side slope and the softness. The greater the side slope and the softer the sand, that's the biggest risk. So you can have something which is quite soft but flat, probably won't get bogged, not very soft but deep but significant side slope, risk of getting bogged. Now this beach isn't exactly the same as the one which you see in the video. I'm going to demonstrate a 3-point turn, but it's similar. Ruts at the top, very, very soft, and I actually ended up getting into that 200 series and doing a 3-point turn. Now, here's what's going on with this particular situation. As usual, we've got towards the tideless zone, we've got two ruts there, and the vehicle's travelling along, and it's got a bit bogged. So in this case, the back end has come out because I've got more weight over the back axle than the front axle. That's the point at which you typically can't go any further. To recover it, what I'm going to do is just back down the beach 90 degrees like so, and almost to the water's edge. Now that will give me a nice straight run, and I'm going to run up and forwards a few times to create a ramp. I'm going to be careful not to wheel spin my wheels and dig in, but simply just to create myself a nice ramp. Once I've done that, I'm going to use that ramp and those ruts to get some momentum. I'm going to go straight and then I'm going to turn. Now that isn't going to work first time, so I'm going to do it a few times, but eventually it's going to work, and I will be able to proceed. The key thing is, when I know that I can't go any further, I'm going to stop and back for another go. I'm not going to sit there spinning in. And what you can also find is that a slight angling off can help as well. But the more you angle off, then the more of a side slope you get, and that can really start to hurt your momentum as well in your ramp building. Look at this. We've only got 2 wheel marks because we're going dead straight. As soon as we start to turn, we get 4 wheel marks, and that means that we are more than doubling the amount of drag and resistance. So you've got to drive drive straight forwards and get your momentum first, then start to turn as the drag builds up. So let's put that into action. Now I can't go forward, so I'm going to go backwards. So that's just engaging reverse and going back nice and slow, full lock. Now I can do that, and look how soft the sand is at this point, because gravity is helping me down the hill. Now as I get closer to the water, the sand starts to firm up. I've also turned 90 degrees, so the car's going straight down the hill, which is important. Any form of side slope starts to rob momentum. Come to a nice smooth halt there so I don't dig in. Now we're going to select second low to move off, and the reason we do that is so that we don't dig in with first gear. I'm not trying to turn at this point, and that's as far as I can get before the wheels start to spin. So what I'm going to do now is just go absolutely dead straight back, again just avoiding wheel spin, because as soon as the wheels spin, then that leads to disaster. Then you're just going to make life harder for yourself. So again, nice smooth stop, second low, move away, move off, and we get a little bit further that time. And that's just building up a nice firm runway for me. And that means that I can get more momentum, and the more momentum I get, the more chance I've got of making that difficult turn left to completely U-turn. So back again now. So we'll give it one more shot going straight ahead. You can see that I get even more momentum this time, and I travel a little bit further. Now I'm not going to go all the way into the vegetation zone because that's bad, but what I've now done is I've created about as good a runway as I can possibly manage here without going all the way into the ocean, and that's going to give me maximum momentum. So now it is going to be time to give it a shot. I don't think I'm going to make it first time, but let's give it a try. And you can see that very quickly run out, and again a little bit of wheel spin there, but not too much. Now because that went quite well, what I'm going to do now is not go back exactly on the same runway that I've got. I'm just going to angle it off to one point here and try it off here, because you can see it's quite firm packed sand, and we're just going to give it another try. Now this is maybe fairly time consuming. I'm just going to speed this bit up. In reality it took about 3 minutes of going backwards and forwards, but I'll just speed this bit up because it's a bit boring. Now this is where you make a call. What's quicker, deflate the tyres, use traction ramps, or just do a few runs and solve the problem that way? There's no right or wrong answer, just depends what you're inclined to do and how much time you want to spend on either option. Okay, so 3 minutes later and a few runs, here's the final run. As you can see, I've just got a lot of momentum there, and then I'm able to get back on to those ruts, and off we go, pick up my passenger. Now this is what you can do. Traction ramps, you can put them down ahead of time. So here's I'm pulling the caravan, and I've started off on 2 ramps, but I've got one ahead of the wheels in a rut, and it just goes over, and then the back wheel goes over, and I'm able to pull out. So you can put traction ramps down ahead of time, and that does work. Now here's another example. This is the Ranger and earlier guys without the service body. Same sort of problem as you can see, but we didn't go backwards. We just used traction ramps and lowered the tyre pressures just to get out from the last 100 metres here, continuing along this pretty soft sandy beach. So you don't have to do the U-turn. You can continue, lower tyre pressures, and then just really careful use of traction ramps and digging, and that can get you out as well. So you're probably wondering why not a simple U-turn, and you can absolutely do a U-turn and should, because it's simpler and easier, but it's not always easier to do that, because sometimes you can't drive across the slope, but you can drive up and down it, and that's where the 3-point turn comes in. So the problems you got with a U-turn is it could be in this case a 200-degree turn as opposed to only 180 to a 90, and there's no opportunity to build a runway halfway through either, and there's a fair bit of side slope driving, whereas the 90-degree turn minimises that. So it's got its place, but here's another option for you. Now, which way do you turn if you're going to do a U-turn? That is a good question. So you can start to angle off away from the ruts and then do a 180 to come back, or you can do a hard turn down towards the beach and then come back up. And again, no right answer. You choose the one depending on where you can get the most momentum before the softest plan. It's dependent on the amount of space you've got, the sort of momentum you can get up to, how far back before you can get onto firmer sand, etc., etc. But you do have two options there, so consider which is best before you just launch ahead. Now, if you're going to do a 3-point turn, you can either back down or drive down. So if you go front down, then you'll just drive the car forwards like that, and then you will back it out, and that will actually give you the easiest turn onto ruts, because when you turn a car backwards, the rear wheels form a tighter arc than the front wheels, so it is actually easier in many ways to get the back of the car around if you go down front forwards. Now, if you go down back down, which is what I've done here, then it looks like that, and you'll find it easier to drive up the slope because you've got more choice of gears. You've got first, second, third, low, whereas if you're backing up, you've really only got first low or first high, sorry, reverse low or reverse high. Now, which one to choose? Again, it really depends on the situation. Generally, I'd go with whichever side of the car is lower. So if the front wheels are slipped down, then I'd be looking at driving down nose first. If the back of the car slipped down, as it did in my example, I'd be looking at backing down. Both of them can work. Again, you just got to decide which one's going to be easiest for you. So in this case, we're not doing a U-turn, but we are coming off a beach, which is kind of the same thing. So very hard packed sand. I can easily drive on there with a caravan. But again, I've started off in a straight line and getting my momentum up. And then you'll see that before I get onto the soft stuff, I've got everything completely in a straight line, which is good practice even without a trailer. But with a trailer, it's absolutely critical. And then that just reduces the drag as we go through. Now here's a similar stuck situation. So I've got the Ranger all the way down towards the waterline, and I have the story of how I recovered that. This is actually a steeper, even softer beach, so you can watch that video and learn a different technique for recovering from such a situation. You can also apply much the same technique with a trailer, and you can see here that's exactly what I'm doing. I've got this technique fully detailed in another video. Okay, as always, going to end with a summary. So first of all, give up early when you can still back out. That's a golden rule of sand driving. Just give up early, try it again. Secondly, reverse back so you're facing uphill and leave a straight run. Whenever you turn, you make life harder for yourself in sand, so you want to be able to go straight and then turn. Then let the sand slow you down, don't brake to a halt. If you brake to a halt, you're going to run the risk of digging the car in. Pull away smoothly in second gear low range, maybe even third gear low range, and use the highest gear you can. Get some speed going straight ahead, then try and turn. And if it doesn't work, as soon as it doesn't work, back off, do not wheel spin and try again. Now, if every time you make even half a meter or 1 foot of progress, you'll get there. Just keep trying it again and again and you'll get there. And obviously you can use traction ramps and drop pressures and dig, and all of that is good stuff. I'm just showing you one technique here. There are several others. So I hope you found this video useful. Any questions, please drop them in the comments, and thank you for watching.